What's up, guys? Joey McKernan here with the What It Takes podcast, and I'm here with my friend Paul West. Paul, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic.
Good, man. As you guys know, we are here to talk about what it takes to win in business. Today, we actually have a non-profit themed episode, which I'm really excited. Paul is connected to a lot of different things. I'll let him explain that. But I'm really excited. As you guys know, we work with nonprofits. So any way we can help them, any way we can maximize them, I think is a win, right? So Paul, how about you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us all the hats you wear here in Omaha, and we'll get into the conversation.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for having me, Joey. I'm just excited to help talk about this, right? And first of all, it's a very broad topic. So I hope we can drill down to maybe some tangible takeaways for a lot of the listeners here today of being able to assist and look at that. Man, my simplest hat is I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a dedicated to Omaha and Nebraska. I love it here, man. I love helping. And a lot of the work I do in the nonprofit world is for Nebraska organizations and trying to help Nebraska people. And not that we don't think bigger than that. But, man, I love who we are and where we are, importantly. So, my day job is Carson. That's where I am as a managing partner, and love helping families throughout the country. Philanthropically, I'm involved in quite a bit I love helping seniors. I love helping education. I love helping Omaha, right? I'm on the executive committee for the Omaha Chamber, chair-elect for next year. So I get to see a lot of what's happening in both the for-profit and nonprofit world. So, looking forward to sharing some insight with you and everybody here today, Joey.
Yeah, that's what I love. I mean, you really have so many connections and wisdom, I feel like, in both spheres, right? And the for-profit sector and the nonprofit sector, and how they coexist and how they work together, right? So obviously this is our nonprofit themed one. And I want to start off talking about boards as this, I always tell people, like, when we first started Equip, that was like, I was so tempted to start one of our programs for board health and just like board management. We actually haven't done it yet, but it's a challenge. And I talk to nonprofits all day long. Probably 8 out of 10 have board challenges, right? So you've sat on a lot of boards. You currently sit on a lot of boards. Let's just start kind of generally, like, what have you seen kind of the things that we need to grow into when it comes to being a good board for a nonprofit? Let's just start there.
Yeah. Well, again, you're throwing a softball at me here. So, in all fairness, so I'm not on a lot of boards.
Sure.
I want to correct something you said there. I'm on a couple or several, but I will tell you first and foremost, I agree. I think it's actually more than 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
I don't want to say are dysfunctional. They're not optimized.
Yeah. And
I'm going to use that word carefully in the nonprofit sector here too, is I don't want boards to have resume patterns on it. You know what a resume pattern is?
Oh, yeah. They join to put it on their resume.
Yeah, like, I'm on X or I'm on Y.
Yeah.
I don't care. I need your heart and soul into this, right? Yeah. And it doesn't mean, I need you to give X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
But it needs you to give discretionary effort.
Yeah.
Because you care and want to get in that. So that's the first thing I would say to a board and board leadership. You need to truly outline roles and responsibilities for your board members and what you expect.
Yep.
And so one of the first things I would just coach people to do is when you bring on board members, have that onboarding meeting. But better yet, you've already talked about it. Because if you set that expectation ahead of time, you'll not receive those resume patterns for you, Joey.
Yep. And it's so common. Like, again, we work with some boards, and it's like they haven't showed up in 3 meetings or so. Where was the expectation in the beginning? Why do you think maybe expectations aren't clear in the beginning? Why do you feel like that's a common thing?
Yeah, because I think they got asked to do it. The board was in a pinch because someone else left or someone retired or somebody resigned or whatever the reason is.
Yeah.
So like, we're going to go get Steve. We're going to go get Sarah. We're going to go get whoever it is. And then they just throw them in the mix and they go through the motions, or they don't have a good board onboarding process. Can I say that?
You can. Oh, no, you can. Yeah, absolutely.
Board and onboarding right after each other.
Yeah.
in a business, right, if you hire a new employee, what do? They go through a training program and you explain how things work. And it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If you don't take care of the most basic level, so why don't we do that with board members? Why aren't we putting them at Maslow's level of 1? They can't give us all their strategic thinking in this until they understand how the board works, man. Like they have to know, but better yet, what are the expectations that come along with that?
Yep.
And now the hardest part is accountability. So at the end of the year, do you have some form of scorecard? Like, do they attend 75% of your meetings or whatever metric you want to put in place there? Did they contribute? And contribute, again, doesn't always have to mean dollars.
Right. Yep.
But it does have to mean discretionary effort, like I said earlier.
Yeah. Tell me more about the onboarding process, because I think I think it's a great point. And what have you guys implemented or could implement or have implemented when, like, specifics for that onboarding process? Is there an application? Like, what practically does that look like?
Yeah, so it differs, right? I mean, first of all, there's lots of nonprofits, right? And there's different sizes, right? I think we know most of them are less than 1.5 million in annual fundraising or annual revenue that goes along with it. So you can't have this really complex process in terms of a complex application or review and all of that. What you can simplify is what is expected. Is here's how much time we think it's going to take. Here's what we need from you, and here's the commitment level we need. And so I think that's very easy to do. And if I share that document with you ahead of time, so if Joey, you're responsible for bringing on board members through either your role as the executive director or current board chair, or if you're some boards also will have a recruitment chair, is a designee part of it, then you clearly outline this. Yes, they have agreed they would do this.
Good.
Then you take it to the board. And they vote on that. Right? And if that happens, right, now you've created accountability on 2 sections. One, the future board member has said, yes, I would do this. But we can't even put you on until the board approves you, because they're going to ask the questions and want to see this short form document that, yes, Steve or Sarah has made the commitment that they want to be active in this board.
And I think outlining it very clearly, like what Paul's saying, I think is so important. Let's talk a little bit about the accountability, because I think that's like, we can put it on the piece of paper and then we meet. What would you tell somebody where they did that, we got a board member, and they're just not living up to that expectation? How do we handle that? How do we, what do we do?
Yeah, so if I flip it back, let's say you're the executive director.
Okay.
If I flip it back in your shoes, how excited are you to have that conversation with the board member?
Not very excited.
On a scale of 1 to 10.
Like a 2.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I would say 2 minus. To a 1. You're not. It's putting you in a tough situation.
Yeah, it is.
But what do most of us do? We throw it back at you. Hey, Joey, go deal with that. And I think that's poor board management there. Reality is the board chair should be sitting down and having these conversations. Now, I, as a board chair, could bring you with me, so you can listen and observe. It helps you in your one-on-one conversations you're ever having with board members. But now I look at, my role as a chair, and I'm just coming off of being the Dreamweaver Foundation's chair. Well, we actually just merged. And I want to talk about mergers at some point.
We're getting there.
I know we will. But it's important to be, because I think there's so many great things that can happen. But no, it's definitely the board's responsibility to have these conversations. And I've seen it as documented as actually a scorecard. You came here, it shows all the meetings for the year, who attended or who not. You know what? It's kind of like, I think about nonprofit boards. If you treat them like a for-profit board, there's often a scorecard. And scorecard says, are we winning or not? So part of the scorecard is, okay, if one of the metrics is just pure accountability on showing up, it's pretty easy to have a green check mark if you were there or a red X if you weren't.
Simple.
It's super simple. Yeah.
Right. And I think I love what you said about the chair and the ED, because there's a lot of pressure on executive directors, I feel like, especially in the beginning, right? When they're formulating their board and it's brand new, right? And talk to me about the chair position, you've played that position before, you're currently sitting in that role in certain nonprofits. What I had somebody ask me this the other day. They're like, what does a chair do? And I do agree, like that board governance, like the accountability piece. What would you say in your opinion? What is the responsibility of a chair?
Yeah, I mean, the chair ultimately is the leader, right?
Yeah.
You are electing someone to be your leader. Like, you can't go have a committee without having a final person to drive that committee.
Yeah.
And a board is, I don't want to say a glorified committee, but it is the leadership committee that you have selected as an executive director, whether you're new, to help give you guidance. And we talk about this all the time. A board is not supposed to be micromanaging you. A board is supposed to be providing strategy and ultimately governance related to it. Is like, are things being run correctly? Are the financials correct, etc.? We're not supposed to go down and like tell you what to do, how you do it. We are hiring you as the executive director to do your job. You should expect us to provide that strategy for you. And most of the time in our board meetings need to be spent on strategy. I don't need to be worrying about what color balloons you're having at your fundraiser or even ever providing an opinion on that.
Yeah.
It should be like, hey, Joey, in your role, how can we help you as the board? And strategically, how are you approaching this? How are you approaching fundraising? How are you approaching fulfilling your mission? How can we help you carry that out versus, hey, did you print this report for this? Like that's not what a board's responsibility is. So I'm answering your question back to the chair.
Yeah.
Somebody at the chair's role has got to say, are we having our meetings? Are we making this happen? Are we delivering upon that? No different than in a for-profit world, you have a CEO, but who also wears the chair hat most of the time, depending on that size of organization.
Yeah. I love you said that, like, the chair is a leader. And I've seen nonprofits try to treat the chair like just another board member, like kind of just like I don't know how to explain it. Like just basically another board member that kind of has they have a vote, but they're not really leading. They're just kind of the point of like, make sure we get together. And like, that's kind of all they do. And I've seen some people not step into that chair position because of that leadership piece. So I think that's really helpful for groups as we're listening here.
Yeah. So if I could actually
go ahead, add to that.
I'm gonna jump.
Add, please.
Listen, I'm sorry. I got to go back to my old radio days. We're gonna banter.
That's why we're here. Hey, that's why we're here
about this. So I don't know how many of you have done this. And again, figure out where you are in your journey of your own nonprofit, your board here. What I've learned is actually I have a board matrix. Where I am at different places of what's their background. So like me, I'm finance, somebody legal background, is somebody nonprofit, are they fundraising, are they healthcare, wherever they're from.
Yeah.
Then I also look at, do they have, what's their financial capacity? What's their strategic capacity? What's their leadership capacity? And you need a good mix on your board, right? A lot of times when you start, right, and a lot of nonprofits start, we were just talking about a friend of ours a little bit ago, started one like, you just go out to your friends, right, immediately. Well, the reality is most of your friends are probably wired and similarly structured to you. And you need some diversity on your board, right? And I'm not just talking just about, DEI diversity. I'm talking diversity of thought, diversity of action. So, but you also have to think about who are the people that have the ability and skill set here to step up into that leadership role. Because, right, if you think about it, a lot of us on boards are leaders, right? We're potentially, executives in for-profit businesses, and we tend to have that leadership hat and role.
Sure.
But they maybe have the skill set, but do they have the capacity to take on that? So I would be concerned if I saw like, hey, this is great, Sarah's on my board with me, but Sarah's on 9 boards. Reality is she doesn't have capacity to do that, most likely. So being conscientious of that and in your interview process, so you'll be able to figure out who's next to step up into that chair role for us.
Yeah. No, that's good. Have you seen boards shift what we call kind of the identity from like a working founders board into more of an advisory board? Have you seen or been a part of a board that has kind of went through the transition of how it operates? Or
Yeah,
What type of boards have you, kind of been on?
Yeah, so I've been on quite a few. Like, hey, this is brand new startup. Mm-hmm. Like, what do we do with this board just to get this things off the ground? Like, and so that's like, how are we tying our shoes?
Yeah, founders board.
Board to very complex multi-year organization. Not just millions, but multi-state type groups.
Yeah.
What's been interesting is I've got to sit, in the passenger seat as a vice chair and in the driver's seat as a chair of a founders board from a family who started an organization, right? And it still is their passion and their love, but converting it from like, hey, we all roll our sleeves up, this is what we do, to, going to a 9-person board. Building chair and vice chair roles inside of there. Creating actually terms and term limits for your chairs, not for just your chairs, for all board members.
Yep.
And then, by the way, though, how do you have a board with founders who everyone's going to ultimately defer to them to a decision, but they have a lifetime seat at the board?
Yeah.
It creates actually some competing challenges and cultural issues, and ultimately would cause problems because, I'm not going to dig in because, the founders and the family are going to make the decision.
Yeah.
So my guidance to everyone is, and I've done this, is you need to create, if it works for you. Now, it doesn't work every situation, but it's pretty close, is create a founders board seat and give them the optionality to be involved and active, but to trust the rest of the board. And that way, if they want to jump in, they always have a seat at the table. But they're also saying, if I'm not there, I will always abide by what the board decides to do.
Yep.
So that will stop. A lot of people get concerned is if a founder isn't there at the meetings, they come back later and like, why'd you decide this? Or why'd you decide that?
Right.
That's not fair to the rest of the board members and completely demeans what they're doing.
Yep.
So there's actually ways to put founders' seats in place and actually legally do that. To help. So
it's good.
If you haven't explored that before, feel free, Joey, through you to reach out to me or someone I'd help provide more guidance to all your listeners today.
That's good. I had a mentor one time say, it's hard for a nonprofit to mature still with founders involved, like with the board. And I love it gave a different kind of picture of what that could look like, because I've seen that before. Maybe a couple times.
It's their baby, right? I mean, their passion, and certainly we honor and respect that.
Yeah.
But also, if they want it to keep growing, and there's the big difference. I would talk about. I love being involved philanthropically, and I do, and I'm only involved in ones that my heart's in.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But also, I feel fortunate. Like I can sometimes bring a for-profit lens to this.
Sure.
Listen, everybody gets in, and we're all trying to solve challenges we see, right? We all have our missions, right? And our vision statements and why we help seniors, right? So, or why we help for education or children or whatever that may be. But we also want to maximize the amount of impact we can have.
Yes.
So I'll say sometimes the for-profit world can help in thinking through not just the board, but strategically. Are we approaching things the right way? Are we fundraising in a good way? Operationally, are we running efficiently? Which is why, the merger conversation is super interesting to me because are there more operational efficiencies out there to help more nonprofits?
Yeah. I want to dive into that merger conversation. But before we do that, obviously, with the board, I know the practicals you just shared were super powerful. So as you guys are listening to this right now, practicals, I think one of the words that I thought was powerful is accountability. A lot of boards, there's just not a lot of accountability. And I think like you said, the chair and the ED doing it together, the chair has to lead. The chair's got to be a leader, which I think is so important. And I love that founder's idea with the seat. I love that.
I think do one thing at a time too. At the end of the day, that's we can't do everything.
Yeah.
And so whatever situation you're facing, solve that one, then move on to the next one.
Yeah. That's so good, Paul. We're going to talk merger, which I thought was so interesting. This is not a topic that I've really thought about, but Paul brought it, as a concept, he's been a part of one currently right now, which I think is it completed or in
we
process?
Are completed.
Completed.
Yes,
Congratulations.
yes. Thank you.
I've worked in for-profit spaces. I've heard of mergers forever. I've also worked a lot with nonprofits. Have not heard of a lot of mergers in the nonprofit space. I've heard of certain nonprofits that are kind of like sunsetting and they kind of like dissolve into a nonprofit, but I've rarely heard of like two orgs coming together. I just want you to kind of open that up and share your experience in that.
Yeah, so here's what happened is, and if I can use real situations
Please.
here with you, I look at who's supporting which demographic of what you're fulfilling. So, use example, a Dreamweaver for me, seniors, last wishes for the impoverished elderly. But we also had been talking to some friends with Merrymakers, and Merrymakers provides musical performances and artistic performances for the senior community as well. So they go in facilities and song and dance and all those.
Fun.
Fun stuff.
You're going to go do that with them? Is that
sure,
what you...
I'd be happy to. Now, I'm not a great performer. I better be careful what I promise. By the way, here, my kids will tell something that's not good. But anyways, we both help the senior community, and all we're trying to do is put smiles on their faces, right? We're trying to help them. A lot of times they're lonely. We know senior loneliness is super impactful. But what we found is why continue to operate independently, right? We are two completely separate organizations, completely separate P&Ls. We did have one crossover board member who was instrumental. Her name was Jen, and trying to connect it.
Sure.
We looked at it and we said, hey, wouldn't we be more powerful if we were just one unit? One combined board, one combined organization. We're still all fulfilling the same thing of seniors, but and we have all of our programs. So we have the Dreamweavers programs of providing these dreams to people, the terminal illness. We have our Connecting Hope program. We have Merrymakers performances programs. Those are all programs of works, but now under one umbrella, which meant then also we could improve some of our operational efficiencies. Like, why don't we just have one P&L? Why don't we just have one accounting? Why don't we just, if we think about maybe we can do events together versus spending all this money for renting out places and doing things. And as you all know, as part of nonprofits, our operational expense, or what I like to use, OPEX ratios are looked at in our grants process and all of this. So is there a way to do it? And man, I'm super happy to say, I was with Donna Cush. I don't know if you had her on the show or not, from the Omaha Community Foundation. And we were talking about this when I had her as a speaker on my Infinite Stage, as you're aware of Apiary. And when we were talking, I go, how many merger talks are there per year? And she's like, oh, Paul, we get, inquiries. I think she said around 50.
Wow.
It was close to there, Joey.
Sure.
We're the only one that I'm aware of that happened in 2024.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, and I think what happens is you get ego in play. So you may have two executive directors who are like, hey, this is my baby, it's my thing. Or you may have two founders, And by the way, that
probably
happened,
even harder with founders, too.
By the way, both of these had founders.
Okay.
And both personally. And so we merged that together. And not to go through all the details, we kept the beliefs and what I called the immovables the founders wanted. But they both looked at it as this new entity, combined organization, gets to keep their tenets and belief system. They both kept their founders' share as part of the merged board. But more importantly, they're like, now this is going to live on longer than probably my lifetime because of putting this together. And to watch their peace of mind and now to know, like, we have a bigger, larger organization, right, that should provide even more impact. That's really fun and cool. And on behalf of the boards, I'm thankful to them because they thought that way. And it wasn't like, nope, this is our board. We're not ever going to consider this. Sometimes people don't consider the merger because of ego.
There's the word.
Yes.
I love you said something earlier about, we're all just trying to make change. Like, that's the goal, right? We're just trying to make a difference. But that word you just said, ego, can sometimes get in front of it, right? Why do you think that, I don't know, I've seen mergers in for-profit spaces all the time. Now, I realize there's a financial benefit to mergers, and I realize there's maybe a different situation there. But why do you see that so common in the for-profit space? And then it is kind of a, you're the only one talking about it. Like, why is that such a unique concept in the nonprofit sector.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure it's quite unique. What's unique is it actually happening. People talk about it all the time. So you need, I would say, open-mindedness, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we look at our, nonprofit as this is our baby. No one else does what we do. No one else is better than that. But the reality is don't take offense to this, Joey, but there are other podcasts, right?
Yeah.
And there are other podcast leaders, and you're awesome at what you do.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're all replaceable.
Yep.
In what we do and how we approach it. Same way with our nonprofit. Someone else could do it. Someone else could replicate it. Someone else could look at it. And I don't mean that negatively at all.
Sure.
Let's just be real.
Yeah.
And authentic as humans in who we are here. So for me, I just like the merger concept is, I'm not saying it's right for everyone.
Right.
I just would like you to consider it as a option. It doesn't mean it has to be the option.
Yeah.
Just a option out there because what we see, I've been on, enough boards over my duration here.
Yeah.
That they just flatline in terms of revenue growth. And I'm sorry, fundraising growth. There's the for-profit side of it.
It's the same. Yeah. Income.
Same thing. So is there another way to do that that makes sense? Now, certainly it's not easy, right? If we as a board said to you as our executive director, hey, Joey, I want you to go talk to Steve, who's the executive director over at ABC.
Mm-hmm.
If you two met, the likelihood of a merger happening is
low.
I'm going to go
low.
Yeah. Slim to none.
Yeah.
Slim left the building.
-1.
That old movie quote there.
Yeah.
Because they're both going to go into WIFM.
Right.
What's in this for me? And then they're going to go to job preservation mode. Well, hey, if we merge, is one of us gone?
Am I out? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why, to be open with you, that's why a lot of them don't happen. Because people go in self-preservation mode.
That's good. And I think, again, everyone has their vision and all their causes. But one thing I do hear a lot in this city specifically, because this is an Omaha show, is that there's a lot of nonprofits. And I'm a big believer in all the nonprofits we work with, but it's like how sometimes I do think this is an option here, to make more impact, to do the same impact but in different ways. Like you guys kept your programs together. You guys were still doing your unique programs, but you became one entity together. I just think it's a powerful concept.
Yeah, well, I think everybody wins, right?
Yeah.
I think you have to look at that. And not every situation is going to be like
100%.
To be clear.
Yes. Yes.
Right, and we obviously had to go through and make sure there wasn't any legal issues with this or financial issues.
Sure.
But yeah, you're right. I go look at this as more people get impacted in a positive way by us doing it than if we didn't do it. And so it's that simple.
Yep.
More seniors in this example get a dream fulfilled, get connected via Hope program, or have a Merrymakers performance, right?
Yeah.
That's a win-win-win.
Yep.
In how I look at it. And I think my guidance to everyone, from a nonprofit perspective is step back for a second and have that lens, right? And I think it's really good to think through, like, where are you going and what do you want to have this look like? And if you don't, then you're just going to get stuck in the status quo. And that's no good.
Anything, we got 45 seconds left, but we're okay. Anything else you would share for our nonprofits listening?
Oh, man.
In 45 seconds.
I can't believe it went this fast, Joey.
It goes fast. Half an hour.
Yeah,
it goes quick.
Listen, told you I'm done. I'm glad I don't have to do a radio show anymore. But it's this simple. Only dedicate the time where your heart is. That's it, man. It's just stop saying yes to everything. Oh, and by the way, less chicken dinners. Please, sorry, no offense. Less 3-hour-long plated chicken dinners for me personally, or most people. But man, just do the work in a way that you feel good about. Don't do it to be a resume patter.
Yep. Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you, man, for being here. That'll be our second episode together. Is about chicken dinners, but that'll be
chicken dinner.
No more chicken dinners. So, guys. Listen to this back. We're talking a lot about the board and the structure and the accountability. So good. The merger is such an interesting concept, and I'm sure if you'd want to learn more, they can, connect with somebody at Dreamweaver, or,
they can reach out to me.
Reach out to you. Okay.
LinkedIn or wherever they want to find me.
And no more chicken dinners. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Paul, for being on the show, guys. We will be back here with another guest for What It Takes podcast here in a few weeks. Thanks, guys.